What's up, everybody? This is Matt Higgins with the NyteTime podcast, episode 10. It's Friday, January 26th, and got some stuff to talk about. I think we're going to spend most of the episode covering some articles that I've saved that I thought I would talk about. Throw out some opinions. First, I want to say thank you for watching and listening. I always want to preface each episode by saying I don't think I'm right on everything. I think I have some solid opinions that are going to be shared by a lot of people, and I think it's important that everybody understand that they're not alone when it comes to these opinions, because I consider myself to be a progressive liberal, but I also have my own thoughts and feelings on issues, which doesn't make me a good progressive or liberal, I guess. Just like if you were a Republican or a conservative and you also had some progressive and liberal ideas as well, it's okay to take the good things from both sides and put them together and be a very well-rounded, centered individual. Just because you belong to one party or one group doesn't mean you have to adopt all of their opinions and ideas. To me, that's a form of weakness. It causes you to have blind spots in your thinking and in your actions because you're not completely informed. You're not thinking for yourself. So with that said, we'll go through some news articles today. The first one that's really been bugging me is this. There was a UFC fighter. His name is Sean Strickland. He was doing a press conference, getting interviewed, and some reporter asked him about comments he made about having a gay son and how he thought having a gay child basically meant that he would have been a failure. He feels that he would be a failure as a father if he had a gay child. That's what it boiled down to, and that being gay is wrong. So first of all, and another thing, Jesse Waters did a segment on this from Fox News, and he's a smarmy prick. But he and his guests, phrased it as a gotcha question, and that he was being baited, or however they want to justify being asked intelligent questions as being wrong. First of all, he wasn't baited. He was being asked a legitimate question about opinions that he had expressed out loud. So that makes it fair game. Part of your job as an athlete, according to your boss, your organization that you work for, is you have to interact with the press and answer questions and make yourself available to the public. So that was fair game. That he wasn't being baited, and it's not a gotcha question. If being asked if you would love your child unconditionally, regardless of whether or not they turn out to be gay or non-binary or whatever, if your answer isn't, I would love them unconditionally and support them no matter what, you're probably a piece of shit parent. It's not a gotcha question. It's only a gotcha question if you're a piece of shit parent. Okay? You love your child no matter what. Being gay is not a weakness, and it doesn't mean you're a failure as a parent. I got news for you. It's not about you. Your child's sexuality isn't about you because it's not a fucking choice for them. They don't choose to be gay. You guys need to get this out of your fucking heads. It's not a choice. Nobody signs up for I'd like to live the rest of my life being ostracized and being subjected to prejudice and bigotry and hatred and shunning from society. Nobody says, yeah, I'd like to go through that for the next 60 years of my life, or 70 years. Life is hard enough, okay? Nobody's asking for that. They are what they are. It's just the way it is, okay? And if your reliance on your opinion being the opposite of that is the Bible, you can also go fuck yourself, because just like you don't want to play the games that you say people who play the pronoun game are detached from reality, and it's make-believe. That's how the rest of us feel about your fucking Bible and your religion. It's make-believe. We don't want to participate in it because it's bullshit. It's make-believe. If you need the Bible to tell you how to be a good person and why to be a good person, you're not a good person, because without that Bible, you are basically saying you would be the piece of shit that you're acting that you are. So it's not about you if your child's gay, so it doesn't mean you're a failure, and you need to accept that. Now, as far as Sean Strickland goes, I don't know why, and I've thought this for a very long time. I don't know why we keep asking athletes and superstars in sports their opinions on certain things. Like, who gives a fuck? This reporter, and this is where I will agree with some people on the horseshit gotcha stuff. Why are you asking this guy about his feelings on homosexuality? What answer did you think you were going to get? What nugget of wisdom did you think was going to fall out of his fucking mouth? Okay, this guy purposely asked this question just so he could get the shitty reaction that he knew he was going to get, so that he could somehow get some extra eyeballs and more audience views on his reporting. Nobody gives a fuck what this guy thinks. If you're basing your life choices and ways of thinking on somebody who gets paid to beat the shit out of people for a living, you've got your own fucking problems. You definitely shouldn't be looking to him for wisdom. And he can say whatever he wants, and he can believe whatever he wants. I don't fucking care, because I would not look to him for guidance on how to live my life. He's going to live his life his way, and don't ask questions to people who are going to give you shitty answers just to try and make them look bad. Leave them the fuck alone. I've had the same feeling, like when I'm watching a football game or a basketball game, and there's a timeout or there's halftime or it's the end of the quarter or whatever, and then they feel the need to go on the field and get these small little interviews from the fucking coaches or the players during the game. Why? Who gives a fuck? Halftime, the coach is coming off. If he's on the losing team, they ask him these stupid questions like, what do you think went wrong? Well, if you were watching the game, you would know what went wrong. And what are you going to do to fix it? Well, if you knew what was going wrong, we're going to do the opposite of what was going wrong. Well, if you're on the winning side and you come off of halftime, what do you need to do to win the game? These stupid questions like, well, we need to score more points than the other team. That's how we're going to win the game. It's just, I don't give a fuck what the coach has to say. I don't care what he's thinking. He's getting paid to do a job. All I want to watch is the game. I don't need to hear what they're thinking. Who gives a fuck? I don't know why you would be so invested in a team that you, A, don't play for, B, don't work for, and C, would be probably totally surprised to find out that none of them care about you as a fan. They're paid to play a game, and therefore they're also paid to make sure they make you think they care about you. They don't, and they don't have to, and I don't want them to. I want them to go out and do the job they're paid to do and entertain us. I don't care what they're thinking. I don't care what their fucking views on politics and homosexuality and lifestyles and society and government. Who gives a shit? Most of them are paid to play the game because there's nothing else they could do and make money. And that's fine. Find something you're good at and get paid for it. We need to stop trying to take these people who aren't paid to think for a living and try and nail them with questions that we know are going to make them look bad. That needs to stop, because I don't fucking care, and neither should you. So Sean Strickland, I don't give a fuck that he's a anti-gay, anti-trans, fucking anti-woman, because apparently he thinks every woman belongs in the kitchen. Yeah, it's a fucking Neanderthal view, but he's allowed to have it, and I don't care that that's his opinion. If you're a woman, I can't tell you what to think. I would hope you would have enough self-respect to know that he's a piece of shit for saying it and thinking it, but we can't have thought police. Okay, we can't stop people from thinking ass backwards. So stop trying, and stop trying to nail them in the public eye and trying to get them canceled. Stop. Who gives a shit? So, it doesn't matter what they think. Back to the original point, you're not a failure as a parent, okay? That doesn't mean you're a failure as a parent, because it's not about you. Love your fucking kids and support them no matter what, all right? They'll figure out who they are as they get older, and you support them in every way. If you try to steer them, and it's just like steering your kids towards sports that they don't want to participate in, give them the opportunity, show them that you will support them in the choices they make, but in the end, if they don't want to do something, don't force them to do it. Let them choose. That way they can be invested in it themselves as something they want. Don't try to live out your failed fantasies through your children. Okay, that sucks. They have their own life. They didn't ask to be born. So at least give them the courtesy of living their life the way they feel they need to. So enough on that. The UN court acknowledges genocide in Gaza. They're having, and I don't know, I don't know how much of a difference this is going to make, but I know they're in South Africa. They're having a trial, and they're trying to prove that Israel is committing genocide on the Palestinians. I definitely think it's worth looking at. They are indiscriminately bombing everybody back to the fucking Stone Age, which wasn't that far away from how they were living to begin with. But they're, like I said before in a previous video, they're indiscriminately bombing everybody just to achieve a military objective. And there is such a thing as a proportional response, and Israel has gone way past what should be acceptable in the world's view. And the only reason I care about this is because our country constantly funds and supports Israel, for which I will never understand. No matter how many times somebody tries to explain to me, I don't give a fuck about them. I don't hate them. I don't love them. It doesn't make me anti-Semitic because I don't care about them. I don't care about a lot of things. I don't care about most of the Middle East. I don't live there. I don't have friends from there. They constantly seem to get off on fighting each other over bullshit religious texts and holy sites, which is all fairy tale make-believe bullshit anyway. So I say let them fight each other and get rid of it. But if we're gonna pretend that we're the moral compass of the world, we need to accept some objective reality, and that is Israel is, in my opinion, committing genocide. They've already killed 24,000 people, most of them civilians, a lot of them kids. And Hamas's attack that started all this horseshit, which was, which was horrible as well. And I'm all for Hamas being destroyed, but they killed what, about 1,200 people, kidnapped a little over 200. So 1,200 versus 24,000. I think we can let up a little bit. And it's like I've said previously, in this country, if we knew a gang was controlling a certain city through fear and egregious criminal activity, but they were dispersed among the civilians, we wouldn't just go in and fucking carpet bomb Detroit to get rid of a gang. Okay, we wouldn't destroy the entire city just because it would be hard. It would be harder to do the right thing and do precision strikes and go in there and deal with them on a one-on-one basis on the ground. You can't just go in and say, hey, everybody, we're about to bomb you in 20 minutes. You got to leave. Go north. And then you bomb the fuck out of them, and then you turn around and go bomb the fucking north after you told them that's where they needed to go for safety. And then you tell them, hey, we're going to continue to bomb the north. You better go south. And then you turn around, and as soon as they get there, you fucking bomb everybody in the south again. There's a small area where these Palestinians can go, and they keep moving around, but every time they move, they're getting fucked. So I think at some point the United States needs to say, okay, a ceasefire is a reasonable solution. Yes, Israel had the right to defend themselves, and I think they've made their point. They're not going to completely wipe out Hamas without killing a shitload more civilians. So maybe pause, find a different route, try to come to some agreement, and I know that sucks, but or we tell Israel, look, we're not going to send you any more money or weapons until you cool the fuck off and find a different approach to doing this. I'm not saying I'm right. It's just my opinion, but I think a lot of people share that opinion. Let's stop fucking mass murdering innocent civilians just to get one or two Hamas militants. I mean, how many people are in Hamas to begin with? Do they know? 20, 30,000 at most? Well, you've already killed 24,000 people. How many of those do you consider militants versus the civilians? I think the ratio isn't enough in your favor to justify how you're approaching this. But, that's just my opinion. What else do we got? Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay. I know everybody knows this lady by now. She's a fucking psycho Republican who carries Trump's water as much as possible. She's just completely batshit crazy. She's an embarrassment to herself and her party, and that's saying a lot considering the state of the Republican Party. But she gave an interview where she said, "We are sick and tired of being humiliated." And when she says we, she's talking about her small little collective group of psychos like Boebert and Gates and Jordan and Scalise, all the little core group of MAGA fucking wackos. We're tired of being humiliated. And what she's referring to is, for the second time, the Speaker of the House that they've elected is doing his job and working with both Republicans and Democrats, because both of them compromised the fucking House and Senate. He's working with Democrats to keep the government funded and running, which is his fucking job. That's all of their jobs, actually, but it's his job as Speaker of the House to coordinate those efforts and strike a deal to keep shit moving while they figure out how to pass the laws that they want to or need to. That's not evil. That's not counterproductive. The only way that's humiliating you is because you, as a MAGA core wacko group, keep asking for stupid shit, and you keep threatening leadership in the party because you want MAGA to control all of the Republicans. And while they do have a pretty fair grip on most of them, they don't control all of them, and it pisses them off. And every time they make these stupid fucking demands, and then they get walked over by the rest of the reasonable Republicans to get bills passed, they have a fucking shit fit. That's why they got rid of McCarthy, one of the reasons. The other reason is Matt Gaetz really didn't want fucking McCarthy because of his ethics probe that he had, because Gaetz allegedly paid to have sex with a teenager, some 17-year-old, allegedly. That's what the news was reporting. And he was mad because he got probed and he thought McCarthy was responsible. And maybe he was. Who knows? Who gives a fuck? So they got rid of McCarthy because McCarthy, A, wouldn't lick Gates' ass, and B, worked with the Democrats and the Republicans to fund the government and keep it from shutting down. So they ousted him for like the first time in fucking forever. I think it's only happened twice in history that the Speaker of the House has been vacated. And now that Mike Johnson, who is doing the same thing as McCarthy, trying to work together with Democrats and Republicans to keep the government running, now they're pissed off because he's not bowing down to the MAGA wackos and shutting the government down, and not adopting the approach of, I'm going to take my ball and go home, rather than work side by side with people to keep the government running. I would argue that most Republicans, and I've said this for a long time, they don't want to govern. They just want power. But they don't want to make decisions, and they don't want to do anything that might actually tie them to a fucking stance that they have to be held accountable for down the road. It's much easier to bitch and moan and blame and not do anything and not make decisions and stand by them, because then you can't get blamed for when shit goes wrong. Well, I didn't vote for that. Well, no, you didn't vote for anything. You didn't do anything. You vote against progress. You vote against running the government, which means you get a fucking paid vacation. If the government shuts down, hey, we can go home and not fucking do anything and get paid. That is like the Republican mantra at this point. You guys already get half the fucking year off to do nothing. And politicians, I swear, and they're guilty on both sides. Once you get into power, once you get the job, you don't have to do anything. You spend almost all of your time keeping your job, fundraising, doing press conferences and jerking off your donors to keep your job, but not actually governing. Now, the Republicans are guilty of that more than the Democrats, but by no means, have no illusions, both sides are guilty of that, but Republicans are really shitty about that. And it needs to stop. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene, Little Miss, the world needs to live by my sets of rules and values, the lady who, by the way, had an affair. And that's another thing, while I'm on that subject real quick. I am sick of religious people telling everybody else how to live, especially when it comes from them basing it off of religion and then turning around and every time tripping over their own dicks in public by doing something that is totally against their morals and values that they're forcing on you. You know how many Republicans who are religious get busted as closet for engaging in criminal activity and sexual deviance? Anti-gay politicians who are secretly gay. That happens all the fucking time. Preachers and pastors who get busted for being perverts, pedophiles, homosexuals. That's the biggest problem that I and most atheists have, and most common sense citizens anyways. Don't fucking tell me how to live when it's by a book that you don't fucking follow. Let everybody be who they want to be. If they're not hurting you, if they're living their lives, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, they're not hurting anybody else. Whatever they do is with another consenting adult, leave them the fuck alone. If only God can judge, God will judge them. If God gave man choice on whether or not he wants to believe in him or not, that's our choice to make. You can't force somebody to live by God's rules and think you're saving their soul, because God sees into your soul, knows what you're going to do, knows what you're thinking, knows what you feel in your heart. And in your heart, if you're following the rules that you're forced to follow, but still don't believe in him, you've not saved that person's soul. God is still going to throw them into hell. If you believe in that sort of horse shit. So anyways, fuck Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here's another thing. YouTubers who like to pull pranks in public to get attention and get views for their videos. I guess a kid, I'm not sure where it was, he was riding an escalator going up, I think, and there was a couple going down on the other side, and this YouTuber reached over and played with the lady's hair, and her boyfriend caught him and didn't appreciate it. And so he grabbed the YouTuber, yanked him over to his side, and beat the fuck out of him. I'm okay with this. I think in today's climate, in today's societal climate where everybody is on edge and fucking psycho at this point, and more likely than not armed, if you do something stupid like this, and you mess with somebody you don't know in public just to get a reaction, whatever reaction you get, you deserve. Okay? You can't you can't just assume people are going to play along with you. And secretly, you know you want to get a shitty response because it'll get more views and likes. So if you get the shit beat out of you, hey, you asked for it. Now, if somebody pops off and kills you, I'm not going to lie and say I agree with that result. I don't agree with that reaction. It's a little harsh. However, I can't feel sorry for you. I can be mad that the guy who reacted overreacted. I can be mad about that, but I'm not going to feel sorry for you for eliciting that reaction. You got to fucking know better. You see how people are speaking and thinking and acting right now in the news. Don't fuck with people you don't know. It's not worth it. You think it's worth it until you're dead, and then you're not thinking at all. And I don't know what victory you think you're going to get in death. But I can tell you it's not worth it. It's not, because there's nothing after you die. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. You're not going to get a posthumous YouTube award for best execution for being a dumb fuck in public. Holy shit. Not worth it. Totally not worth it. This was kind of interesting. There's a golfer who's 20 years old. He's an amateur, and he won a PGA Tour event, but he's not allowed to collect the $1.5 million prize because he's an amateur. He scored a 29 under par, which was one stroke better than South African professional Christian. Let me make sure I got this right. Christian Bezuidenhout, who's South African, right? He finished second. Now, the kid's name is Nick Dunlap, 20-year-old sophomore. He plays golf at the University of Alabama. He won this tournament, but because of his amateur status, he basically forfeits the $1.5 million, and it goes to the second place golfer. I think that's pretty cool. Actually, it's pretty fucking awesome. Kid seems to have a hell of a career ahead of him. I would say that if I were the second place finisher and this kid beat me, I would probably give him most of that prize money on the down low because he fucking earned it. It would show a great command of sportsmanship, respect, some integrity. Now, I'm not saying he can't keep the money. If he does keep the money, you know, it's his choice. He won it on a technicality, but I would think it would be pretty cool if he gave him at least half of that prize purse. That's just the way I feel about it. I mean, you know, fair is fair. I know the kid knew he wasn't going to be able to collect because he knew he was an amateur. Everybody knew it. So you could say he made that decision to play, and then if he won, he knew he wouldn't, you know, be able to get paid. But I still think it would be cool if that second place player shared that money with him. Let's see. What else we got? You know, I wanted to talk about something. I hate going back to politics all the time, but DeSantis recently dropped out of the race. So now it's just Nikki Haley and Donald Trump running for the Republican nomination. And I don't have any doubts that Trump will probably get the nomination. I'm happy that Haley hasn't dropped out yet because I think somebody still needs to keep busting Trump's balls and keep nagging at him and causing him fucking grief and irritating him. I think that's a good thing. And I think Haley should stay in it for the long haul because at some point Trump is going to end up getting convicted of something. There's way too many charges against him, way too many court cases. He fucked up way too many times for him not to be held accountable on something. And almost all of this, and they're all felonies. The 91 charges against him are all felonies. So at some point he's going to become a convicted felon. And I'm hoping that a good portion of Republicans who are not MAGA but are still loyal to their party, no matter who the candidate is, I'm hoping that once he becomes a convicted felon, that will turn them off from voting for him. And there needs to be an alternative candidate for them to choose. Now, DeSantis, I don't think was ever going to get it because he's a putz. He is one of the worst politicians I have ever seen, and he is definitely not relatable. He is definitely not comfortable campaigning and debating. I mean, he's a fucking tool. He's a social nightmare is what he is. So Haley, at least, even though she can't figure out how to be articulate enough to not jam her fucking foot in her mouth when it comes to easy subjects like, hey, why was the Civil War fought? What what was the main issue? Like she was so afraid to alienate her fucking southern redneck base, she couldn't say slavery. Like slavery just wouldn't fucking, her brain wouldn't unlock and let slavery come out of her mouth. And she wouldn't say states' rights. Yeah, okay, states' rights to do what? Hold slaves. Yeah. So she's not terribly intelligent when it comes to that subject. But I still think she's a better candidate than Trump anyways, because at least she's not insane. She's not a malignant narcissist. And at least, and I say this as somebody who really dislikes the Republican Party at this point because they've become so fucking cancerous and evil. I would still, it would be like a 40-60 split when I went to the polls, whether or not I would vote for Biden versus Haley. Because I'm fucking sick of Biden. I don't care how good things are looking right now, how good-hearted he is. He's too fucking old. And while, yes, if it came down to Biden and Trump, I'm voting Biden every day of the week, twice on Sunday. But if the Republicans could just put forth a candidate that didn't make me want to vomit, I would seriously consider voting for him. So I think it's a good thing that Haley's sticking around so far, and I think she should stick it out for the long haul so she can be that one candidate that Republicans can at least fall back on, hopefully when Trump gets convicted and hopefully gets sent to fucking prison. What else we got? Elon Musk has been in the news running his mouth, which he's allowed to do. It's a free country. Bitching about diversity, equity, and inclusion, those directives for companies, which basically says that as a company, we realize that minorities have been set back in their ability to socially advance as a culture in society and in the workplace, that we recognize we need to make sure we are at least interviewing and giving minorities a better opportunity at jobs that would normally just get filled by white people. I am not for hiring a minority over a white person just because they're a minority. You want the best person for the job. But all too often, the people that run these companies, a lot of these companies are run with old money. And old money came from old white people who made it a point to keep minorities in their place and not hire them to do jobs. That's just a fact of life. This country is inherently racist. It always has been. And we can't breed it out. We can't breed it out because it requires the individual to put it upon themselves to learn about their history and to want to change. And it's hard to get a racist to change their views, just like it's hard for a religious person to change their views, because it's a belief. Religion is a belief. You believe in something without evidence. Racism is the same thing. You believe in something without evidence. Religious people believe that there's a God controlling everything, yet never want to give him credit for the bad shit and only the good shit. Racism, a racist believes that his race is superior, therefore he is superior than the minorities that he lives and works around, based off of no evidence to support that, but it allows them to feel good and righteous and morally superior and physically superior in their own heads. Religion and racism go hand in hand as far as I'm concerned. It allows them to be part of a group, and that group can therefore band together and look down on another group, and it makes them feel better. That's how I think that's how the Klan started, was a bunch of white guys needing to feel better about themselves. And now it's, nothing's changed. You've got all these southern rednecks who aren't going anywhere, they're going to live out their lives just the way their ancestors have, working as hard as they can to get as little as they can, because they keep electing officials who don't care about them, but somehow convince them to put them in office against their best interests, and allow the politicians to make them believe that somehow they're still better off. They're not better off. They're just not. So the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives are a good thing as long as they're used properly. Don't hire somebody if they're not qualified just because they're a minority. And I don't think that's happening. It just means they need to get a fair shake. They need to get an equal opportunity. And the only way that happens is if it's forced. You have to put those initiatives in place and force companies to do that. Otherwise, if you let capitalism run free, it's a bad thing. If you don't have laws in place, like minimum wage, for instance, the reason there's a minimum wage is because if you allowed companies to pay what they wanted, you wouldn't even get that. And if they all did that, as workers, we would be fucked. We wouldn't have a choice. We wouldn't have a say in the matter, because prices won't go down to accommodate the low wages that companies would pay you if they could get away with it. I don't know why that's such a hard concept to grasp. And yet there are politicians who want to get away with or get rid of minimum wage. I mean, what the fuck? And there are people who would still vote for those politicians. And the people that vote for those politicians who would get rid of minimum wage would suffer the most. And yet they would vote for them gladly with a smile on their face, because somehow the politician will work in the words religion, God, government, children, guns, and that just makes a poor Republican's dick hard as a rock, regardless of what would actually happen to them and for them. So for Elon to spout out how bad DEI is when his money came from old white people from South Africa, I assume everybody knows the history of South Africa and apartheid. He needs to shut the fuck up about that subject. Yes, he can speak about it and run his mouth. I just don't think he should. I think if he was as smart as everybody says he is, he would know to keep his mouth shut on that subject. But he can't seem to do it. And that's the white racist in him. And for him to say DEI is inherently racist in itself and is discriminatory is dumb as fuck. That's dumb as fuck. I can't say that nicely. There's no way to say that nicely. What are other things? There's other things that have been bothering me. I don't, my girlfriend, at some point that status may change. But my current girlfriend, who I love with all of my heart, she and I watch a lot of documentaries, and a lot of them fall in crime, in the crime category. And I was talking with her about the death penalty and we watch a lot of court cam videos, and I see all these instances where people have they're career criminals. They've basically chosen not to be productive members of society, or at least be neutral members, where they're not adding anything, but they're also not taking away anything as far as being, evil and harming other people and taking away other people's rights and lives, and freedom and shit like that. And I see people they'll get the death penalty, but they'll be on the death row for 30 years because the system sucks. First of all, if you do something so egregious that you get the death penalty, at this point where science is at and forensics is at, if you get nailed with DNA evidence and it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that you murdered somebody intentionally and you go to death row, you've got maximum of 5 years. You've got 5 years for your lawyer and whoever else you've hired to come up with evidence that refutes the scientific evidence that convicted you. And if you can't do that in 5 years in this day and age, you're probably guilty. You probably did it. And since the jury decided you deserve to die, you need to go. They need to put you in the chair and zap your ass. Why would we pay to house and feed and clothe you when you took somebody else's life? The death penalty doesn't mean anything as a deterrent if we don't use it. And just recently, like yesterday or the day before, Alabama executed a guy with a new method, nitrogen hypoxia. It had never been used before, and it was successful. I know there were a lot of bleeding hearts, and this is where I separate from my side. Like I said, I have my own thoughts. I'm pro death penalty. If you get on death row, there's a pretty good chance you probably earned it. So they executed him, and his last words were something akin to, and I'm paraphrasing, but this was the gist of it. I'm sorry that humanity is making this choice, and it's dragging them a step backwards by executing me in this manner or executing me at all. And he had a spiritual advisor there who said the same thing and said it's a sorry state of affairs for humanity that we're executing somebody. Yet this guy was convicted of murdering a young lady in a murder for hire plot with some other guy. I don't think it's sad at all, and I don't think it's anti-societal to say, you know what, you took somebody's life, you took away their right to live and their ability to live out their lives the way they wanted to. Why the fuck should you get to live out yours? Especially if it was intentional. You intentionally murdered that person. You want to have a debate about you were in a car crash and the other person died. Yeah, that's not murder. That wasn't intentional. You still took somebody's life if it was your fault. We can have that argument. We can have that debate on what the punishment should be. What I was talking to my girlfriend about was, we need to use the death penalty more so that people understand that's the punishment for being a piece of shit. But for sentences of life without parole, like you're going to be forced to live in jail until you die. If that's the case and you're never going to let them out of jail until they die, why are we letting them live? Why are we paying to let them live in jail? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. It's like they're never going to be a productive member of society. And if we're not going to use them as a form of labor in some form or another, so that they could at least somehow be useful, even behind bars, I think life without parole should be the death penalty. I don't know if that makes me an evil person or not. I know it doesn't endear me to a lot of bleeding hearts, but the concept of, yeah, you've fucked up, whether you killed somebody or you're a career criminal and we're finally done with you, we're going to put you behind bars for the rest of your life. But then we're also going to pay to keep you there for the rest of your life. That in and of itself makes no fucking sense to me. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong on that. I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to like that opinion, but we watch these shows and like, yeah, this person's got 22 felonies and he's in court again. Like, what the fuck are we doing with these people? 22 felonies, and you're here for the 23rd asking for a second chance for probably the 20th time you're asking for a second chance? You either can't make it in society or you won't make it in society. Okay, either you're unable to do it or you refuse to do it, and either way, you might as well go. Why are we keeping you around? Yeah, that makes me sound evil, but that's just my opinion about it. And I get that a lot of people are in jail that probably shouldn't be. Like anybody who's and this is where society keeps dragging its feet as far as the government goes about drugs, marijuana. Nobody who's in jail for marijuana should be there. I wish somebody would have the balls in federal government to say, you know what, this is horse shit. We need to be done with it. But I understand there's some nuances to my opinion and how the death penalty and life in prison are doled out. And we can have that argument some other time. But definitely, if you get the death penalty, you need to go. Anyway, I think I'm going to end it there. That's enough ranting for now. This has been a pleasure to talk to you. Help me get this stuff off my chest. Hopefully it allows other people to see that, hey, you can be on both sides of the spectrum and still be a decent person. And you don't have to succumb to the wackos on the left or the right. You can be in the middle. It's okay. And I'm going to keep making these podcasts until I can't, because I'm starting to have fun doing this. So this is the Nighttime Podcast, NYTE, Not Your Typical Energy. Episode 10. I appreciate you hanging out. I'm Matt Higgins. Peace, love, and gossip.